millions of Hong Kongers take to the street. Find out how one independent media is bringing truth to Hong Kong. Hi, welcome to China Uncensored. I'm Chris Chappell.
I'm Shelley John.
And joining us today is Tom Grundy, the editor-in-chief and co-founder of Hong Kong Free Press, which, in my opinion, is like one of the best sources for news about Hong Kong. So thanks for joining us today.
Thanks for having me with this delightful fake aloe vera plant.
That's fake?
It's not real.
Really?
Wow.
Between one aloe vera plant with Chris Chappell.
Yeah, well, it's going to be a pointed conversation.
Right. Anyway, it's lovely.
Shelley's
I see what you
sick.
did there.
Thank you.
Again, already with a comedy gold.
Yeah, it just rolls off my tongue.
We've been here almost
Leaf it out.
Yes.
Ooh.
I don't know if that question was planted.
Oh, no.
All right.
No.
Sorry, geez, we're really in the dirt here.
Okay.
Well, everyone has stopped watching now, which is unfortunate.
Right. Oh, we can say anything.
Yeah. But yeah, so we've known each other since like 2014 when the umbrella movement, right?
Yeah, where it hit the fan 5 years ago, and this was a big surprise the last few days, the biggest protests in Hong Kong history, because another perfect storm. Momentum seemed so low, I think, among Democrats in Hong Kong, a lot of exhaustion, but yeah, you never know.
Yeah, we were
what
here
can
in
happen.
2016 and people seemed pretty depressed.
Yeah, it's been very fractured infighting and seeing the same old faces, just a few hundred people often at protests. But as one of our columnists, Steve Vines, said, do not bet against the Hong Kong people.
Yeah, so what happened? What sparked the movement again?
Well, this has been months in the making since February, when the government tabled a plan for extradition agreements with territories with which it doesn't currently have any fugitive transfer agreements with, and it was in response to a Taiwan murder case. But of course, you've just disturbed a wasp nest here, because if you're going to make agreements with Taiwan, as far as China is concerned, that's China. So we don't really understand how much this was the local administration's decision to try and push this case-by-case extradition system they want with territories where there's no prior agreement, or whether it was Beijing pushing for this. But in either case now, government is on full face-saving mode, because we've seen, just a week of huge protests filling the streets in Hong Kong, people of all ages, and a lot of anger even after those initial protests about the government reaction.
So a lot of people have been saying, well, don't Hong Kongers understand, there are a lot of safeguards in place. The government has said that, it wouldn't be used for political, cases, all this stuff, but Hong Kongers still seem like say, no, this is not okay.
So Hong Kong has a very different legal system to the mainland. Here we've inherited the common law British system, I suppose, and you still have the judges in wigs and this kind of thing. And in the mainland, there's always a lot of concerns about human rights, black jails, these kinds of things, indefinite detention seemingly, and the death sentence, and just how broadly some laws are applied, particularly to stifle dissent. And we've seen a crackdown since the umbrella movement in Hong Kong, with democratically elected lawmakers ousted from the legislature, certain political parties banned, people being prevented from even standing from election, as well as Democrats and activists and organisers of the umbrella movement jailed, including academics and lawmakers, using quite draconian, archaic colonial laws. So with just the track record in Hong Kong and what we see over the border, the missing booksellers incident and the treatment of lawyers and dissidents in the mainland, Hong Kong's are pretty sceptical about these so-called assurances. And we've seen a chorus of criticism from every possible sector you can imagine, from religious sectors to people who aren't meant to speak up, like lawyers, judges even, journalists, who are meant to all be kind of apolitical, have been raising the alarm, not to mention foreign governments, businesses, local and foreign, all putting out statements and petitions. We've not just seen thousands of petition signatures, but hundreds of actual petitions from the most obscure groups in the city. So that kind of escalated into the protests we've seen over the last week or so.
Well, I've been really impressed with some of the coverage you guys have done of this. Like your people are getting like right into the tear gas. What's wrong?
Yeah, don't tell anyone. We've done this with like 3 people, myself and 2 reporters. I'm very proud of the team.
3 people?
Yeah, one guy's on holiday, but so we've battled through and got a lot of traction and attention, I think, with our coverage, not to mention support with our funding drive that's going on. But I'm very proud of the team. I asked them not to, but yes, Chris just runs straight into the fire, often with his reporting. Literally.
And you're not talking about me, because I would run the opposite way.
That's what I do. In fact, there's footage of him going on Facebook Live straight into the tear gas whilst I'm yabba dabba doing on the legislature's door saying, let me the hell in. Mm-hmm. So, I'm quite the opposite. But it's a bit sad that we're having to resort to, investing in gas masks and gear. And we may have to, before the week is out, once again, break these things out. Because as the Journalists Association here has noted, there's been some rather questionable incidents with journalists seemingly targeted and becoming injured in the fracas we've seen lately.
Targeted by whom?
Our staff have been okay, but the police action was pretty all-encompassing when tear gas was released in particular. They've used rubber bullets and beanbag shots, which is unprecedented in Hong Kong, and certainly journalists have been caught up in the fray, and oftentimes there's been no other protesters around, so there's been a lot of questions about press freedom over the last few days, but a lot of just activist protesters are concerned about how indiscriminate the police action has been, when even they admit only 5 were arrested for actual rioting.
Do you mind if we overlay some of the footage?
Of course, have what you want. As long as it's not marked as Newswire, you're welcome to it.
No, it'd be great to show some of Hong Kong Free
I
Press
figured you would.
stuff,
That's fine.
People know.
There's a moment in a particular video of Chris where he's showing how protesters are so organised, and it's all a leaderless sort of grassroots sort of effort, and they're throwing towels and things over the tear gas canisters, and such cooperation, and all this gear, goggles and cling film they're using. And masks just appears out of nowhere. It's incredibly organised, but also leaderless, very dynamic. It's a lot of encrypted messaging apps and certain forums online where people are upvoting and downvoting civil disobedience ideas anonymously. So you try and speak to anyone as a leader and no one will admit to it. In fact, very few people like to give their names or show their faces in ways that we didn't really see in the umbrella movement. People are a lot more nervous now.
So people have said that that's one of the major differences, the leaderlessness. Are there other things that are different from 2014?
I'd say that's the main stuff. I can't think of what else, but in other ways we have seen a repeat of some of those scenes and how it's the politest protest in the world, and people are recycling, and there's no one playing, music or guitars or anything in these.
There's some music happening.
There's the Sing Hallelujah thing, which seems to be designed partially to annoy the police, and I can't sleep at night because this song is in my head, and I'm can we please go back to Beyond or any other song, please? Next. So, there's T-shirts with Sing Hallelujah and this kind of thing.
And that's because doing that gets the rally classified as a religious gathering, which the police can't. I think
the Christians did mobilize this week. For sure, and they've been urging Carrie Lam, who is a Christian. They are disproportionately represented in politics in Hong Kong. There is talk of how, yes, if you make it a religious gathering, you don't need the permits or whatnot. So there's been chanting, Buddhist chanting as well as Christian chanting on the front lines. Also, it's kind of annoying. For hours on the front lines, they were singing that. So I'm sure that's just a bonus or something. But it harks back to 2014 when there were sometimes some pro-Beijing agitators who would come into the scene during some of the occupation. And to sort of undermine them, people would gather around and start singing "Happy Birthday to you, Happy Birthday to you."
I remember this.
That was funnier. This is kind of kill me. But any other song.
It is kind of funny though that the way that they try to troll the police is with a hymn. There's just something just the whole it's the video of the protesters putting out trash fires and things like that.
You see tension both sides and people losing their tempers, police and protesters. What also gets me, though, is all these videos have emerged and anger's really built up over the police reaction, is the naivety of this being 2019 and the fact that you are going to be filmed from every angle, including from above, by drones, by people in surrounding buildings, and live streamed, and any instance of misconduct is going to be widely scrutinized and shared, and yet the one of the big demands over the last few days is for the police to take responsibility for some of those alleged cases of police brutality. And yet the authorities have just said, oh, we have a mechanism for this and they can make a complaint. The trouble is in Hong Kong, the police complaints mechanism is part of the police. Mm-hmm. So you're asking the police to go investigate themselves. So that's a bit broken as well. But as far as those demands, asking Carrie Lam to resign, retract the bill, for the police to take responsibility for some of their actions, and fourthly, to recategorize or recharacterize last week's unrest with the tear gas and retract its characterization as a riot. These have, none of them have been met, and we may see an escalation this week if there isn't more response on it, because all they've done is apologize and say it's been postponed. This issue with it being characterized as a riot, by the way, is because, again, of some of these colonial laws. You could face a decade in prison if you are deemed to be present and a rioter at these protests.
That seems pretty harsh for...
Yeah, and so the government, again, have done a mild backtrack with that and saying, oh, only certain people committing certain actions will be deemed rioters, but the event itself, perhaps not. But this again is because of what we've seen over the last few years, and there was some unrest in Mongkok not long after the umbrella movement, and people have faced harsh prison sentences, and a couple have fled, one to Taiwan, there's another to Germany, where they were granted asylum. So people are very concerned. That's why they're covering their faces a lot of the time and are kind of media shy.
Well, that's one of the things, you were talking about how violent the police reaction was, and that was something that surprised me, because we saw in the umbrella movement that when footage of the police firing tear gas or pepper spray at the protesters, that's what mobilized more people to come out. And last week you saw police doing it, but way more, and then specifically targeting journalists and saying things to journalists that I can't say on this family-friendly show. So why was that decision?
It's very true. If you go down to the first day of the occupation, the 79-day, protests in 2014, and you spoke to anybody, they weren't really talking about democracy. It was about the use of tear gas. Hong Kongers are pretty allergic to even seeing this on TV. It may be partly that many, of recent generations fled the mainland from, unrest and drama there, let alone the riots we had in the 50s, 60s here. So there's a really low tolerance, and it's really struck me again, despite my years here, how that can really mobilize people onto the streets. And it was the same on the first day of Occupy in 2014, and it was the same when we saw, according to organizers, 2 million turn up for that second big march, people filling the streets. Again, people were talking a lot about the death of a protester the night before, about Carrie Lam's response, and about the use of tear gas and some of the scenes they saw. So those really fed into those the huge protests we saw on Sunday.
So I think one thing people outside of Hong Kong might not really understand is, why don't they just vote out Carrie Lam, or why don't they put pressure on the legislators to get rid of the extradition bill? And so I think people don't really understand the system of government Hong Kong has.
Well, it's small circle elections for Carrie Lam. They call her 777, which for your Cantonese speakers, they may find that amusing. But again, this is a family show. But that's the number of people who voted for her, out of a city of 7 million. So yes, there is no universal suffrage. It was apparently promised to Hong Kong. I think many have given up on the idea that there will be full democracy here. But it's special interest sort of figures, groups who vote for the chief executive every 5 years. As for the legislature, it's dominated by pro-Beijing lawmakers, and almost half of it is not directly elected. It is basically corporate votes, special interest groups, the agriculture sector, the health sector, social workers, the textile sector will get a vote in this. If you're part of that industry, you'll be able to be represented by a lawmaker. But of course, some sectors are way overrepresented, like how much agriculture and textiles and fishery is going on, a lot of fishery in Hong Kong nowadays. So a lot of them are pretty much told how to vote, practically, by the establishment, and that's how laws like the extradition law, or even other draconian things that are on the table, like the national anthem law, can easily basically be passed, and you will see the opposition, the Democrats using all means necessary to try and filibuster, despite the fact that since 2014 they have changed the House rules to rob them of the little power they had to even do that. So it's become physical rucks even in recent weeks to try and stop this extradition bill going through. But I wouldn't be surprised if we see more, because they're kind of powerless. And as I said, the balance of power has been swayed back to the pro-Beijing camp, because they've been ousting under quite questionable circumstances a lot of the democratically elected lawmakers from the local parliament.
Yeah, last time we were here, it was just around the time when they were starting to try to disqualify people for the oath-taking thing.
Yeah.
And we talked to long hair, and then
they literally changed the constitution to do that.
Yeah.
So there's this time bomb in Hong Kong's mini constitution, the basic law almost, whereby if there are any questions over anything in our mini constitution, then the people who get to interpret what was meant, when it was activated in 1997 in Beijing. So what happened with the oath-taking scandal was that quite a few lawmakers made protests and used some swears during their oaths as they were being inducted as lawmakers. And as this travelled through the courts and made it up to the highest court in Hong Kong, Beijing swooped in with their interpretation. They were like, hang on a minute, when it says in the basic law that people must take their oaths, you have to do it solemnly and really mean it. And so that's how, in a very convoluted way, they managed to oust these lawmakers and practically state that because this is backdated to 1997, you were never lawmakers to begin with.
I didn't realize that part.
Right. This worries
yeah.
me about just any law in Hong Kong, because after Hong Kong ousted a journalist last year, Victor Mallet, after he hosted a talk with a pro-independence advocate, we broke that story. I was kissing my permanent residence card, thinking, okay, great, at least they can't cancel my visa.
You out. Yeah.
But then at any time, Beijing can really swoop in on any of Hong Kong's. That's why there's questions over the rule of law even here. But otherwise, it is considered still pretty independent.
I had heard that there had been previous instances of lawmakers protesting during the oath.
Yeah, and there's been instances of pro-Beijing lawmakers, not getting a word quite right and things like that. But yeah, there is still at least one vacancy in the current legislative term that hasn't been filled or hasn't been refilled. There hasn't been a by-election for it, and next year there's going to be another legislative by-election. So another thing with this is that you've seen, including Denise Ho, the Cantopop singer activist, an effort on the ground during these protests of last week to get people registered to vote and to oust the pro-establishment camp. So of the little democracy that there is, at least within just over half of the legislature, there is a big effort to try and mobilise, register people and have them vote, particularly among the people in their 30s who there's not many registered.
So people don't really trust this government, that they have less and less control over, or less and less say over.
Yeah, well, I think we see this around the world at the moment, obviously with the establishment in the US, and it's very polarised between Trump and the Democrats in the UK. Everything is now polarised between Remainers and Brexiteers. And
China Uncensored, Chris and Shelley.
Right, were you always fighting?
Gap.
So, here everything is seen through that lens of pro-democracy, pro-Beijing, and I think whenever surveys are done over how people may vote, it tends to be the pro-democracy camp that would generally sweep the polls if there was full universal suffrage here. But that's not to say that there aren't people, particularly more rural areas, and who do support China, and they do vote for the pro-establishment camp as they see them as just bringing more stability. And there is frustration often with the Democrats in Hong Kong who do focus a lot on constitutional matters when you have one of the biggest rich-poor gaps in the world, often in the city too. So, there's often calls that they focus more on grassroots stuff, and you see that with Demosisto, who do a lot more community work now, and they're not trying to get lawmakers into the legislature because they can't. They're one of the parties that have been effectively banned. They've also done a decent job of late to try and garner support internationally, sort of going around the world. And I think that's what might have led Carrie Lam in the last few days to make quite suspect claims of foreign interference in the organisation of these protests. And she's now echoing something her predecessor C.Y. Leung said about the umbrella movement. And we're hoping to challenge her on that because there isn't really any evidence of it. But certainly it's true. The Democrats in Hong Kong, beyond the legislature, are trying to do things more on a wider scale internationally and grassroots in the communities here.
So
I'll answer a question you didn't ask.
Okay.
There you go.
I mean, that was
Can't remember the
fascinating,
question.
actually.
That's good.
So if the Democrats, let's say, swept the elections, would they be able to get control of the legislature?
Yes, they would regain their veto power to stop things getting through, but at the moment they don't have that. But we'll see what happens next year. These things will probably calm down, but then I'm sick of being wrong, trying to make predictions. I thought Carrie Lam's apology before the 2 million man march would really take the wind out of it. And I'm sick of being wrong. So you never know what the next flashpoint might be, but as I say, you've got the national anthem law, which could criminalise anyone mocking the national anthem, which is going to be difficult for you guys who rely on parody and humour.
Well, we're not based in Hong Kong, so...
So you're immune. Yeah. Still, they might block your YouTube channel. I just don't know how they're going to do it. But we're worried about that for press freedom. If we film somebody, Chris, singing his, horrible version of March of the Volunteers...
He'd be a winner.
Yeah, I mean, what are we going to be liable? You can get, up to 3 years in prison. They're importing this, draconian law from the mainland, so it's very unclear how that's going to be implemented. And then on the longer term, you've got Article 23, the ill-fated national security law, which...
Are they going to bring it back?
That was always permanently shelved, like indefinitely in 2003. Similar language to what we're seeing now, but we don't know. But certainly Carrie Lam's administration and those who she was standing against in the last election have said that it does need to be implemented. So who knows how harshly perhaps Beijing might crack down after these scenes and insist that it is necessary, because when it comes to independence, self-determination, or any of these sort of seditious ideas, that's when people start talking about the need, apparently, for a national security law, despite the fact we already have a lot of legal tools to tackle, apparently, those kinds of things.
Yeah, so you brought up an interesting point. Are you concerned running an independent newspaper about press freedom in Hong Kong?
Well, we were founded as a direct result to the press freedom concerns in the city, in that Reporters Without Borders, Commission to Protect Journalists have been charting a slow decline of Hong Kong's press freedoms, whether it's been actual attacks on journalists, commercial boycotts of liberal newspapers, outspoken columnists or broadcasters finding their contracts not renewed, and we've seen the missing booksellers case. So I think we needed a non-profit alternative, which backed by readers, run by journalists, where we didn't have any investors or tycoon, billionaire owners or Chinese conglomerate behind us. So we were founded in 2015. We've published like 14,000 news articles since then. And to answer your question, I felt that we've built something to resist every possible kind of incursion to the press freedom issues in Hong Kong. And we can run it from anywhere as well, if you've got room in your office, if it comes to it. But yeah, there is this mistrust, and I don't know, particularly when it comes to these red line issues that the government is laying out about interviewing pro-independence people, as Victor Mallet did of the FT. If that could cause us, to face some sort of legal action or censorship, I have no idea. But we've been set up to weather any storm, and I'm very proud to say, like, just in the last week, we've had maybe over 1,000 donations, small ones, which is really good for our press freedom, because we are not sort of answerable to any one big donor. It's a big sort of, grassroots support that we're seeing, not just in donations either, but people have, over the years, sort of donated all their book proceeds, or they've given us computers, laptops. I've had people send us winning lottery tickets in the post, or like thrust cash at me in the street, which is very alarming, like a reverse mugging. But
maybe they were soliciting you.
Yeah, say again?
Maybe they were soliciting you.
I don't know. Well, during the darker times of HKFP, yeah, I've all kinds of things I've had to do for cash. But no,
for the greater good.
I have to do it, man. I've got to keep Chris paid. So no, luckily,
other Chris.
it's been going. Not you. Luckily, we've managed to like double our income, double our spending. In the second, third year, invest more in original reporting, and I was told you can't keep going back to the well, that give it 6 months, it's dead. But now I think it's a model, and 4 years on, next week, is our 4th birthday. It kind of works, is what I would say is our tagline. HKFP, it kind of works.
Hong Kong Free
We're
Press.
still here, right?
Yeah.
And it is just the 4 of you, right?
Yeah, I think we now have just a smaller, better paid sort of qualified team. And earlier we were like 10 of us and interns and all kinds of stuff. But yeah, we're very proud of them. We all have to do a bit of everything. But yeah, we're a pretty small team that punch above our weight. And people are surprised to see that we're in the corner of a co-working space and there's like 3 or 4 of us. But yeah, we try to appear bigger than we are. Same drill for a bear attack.
I'm sorry we've broken the illusion.
Thanks, yeah.
Well, I mean,
Chris thought this whole co-working space was our office. It ain't. Maybe I should start lying and make us look
you're
cooler.
like, this is us,
Yeah.
but yeah, well, I mean, we're also
It's
a
basically the
small team. So
We're
Well, you're
3
pumping out
person.
videos this week. It's amazing. So
As well, Hong Kong's been
very
very
fast
good.
as
Yes.
well. And you came to our fundraiser Friday.
Oh, that was fun.
Yeah. Yeah, it was fun until the police came to ask us to keep
Well, I
it
feel
down.
like that was very on brand for you. I mean, if you're going to be an independent press, like what the police showing up to your fundraiser.
But do we need 5? And it was the people around here who were living illegally in the industrial buildings who I think called the police. It wasn't that loud.
There's no residential around here.
Not meant to be.
Okay.
People do though, and it was particularly awkward because we were playing a certain tune by NWA a bit earlier in the night. Somehow someone had,
not family friendly tune.
made some
but
adjustments to the playlist. So, but still, that was a fun night, and I have no idea how we've pulled it off. But I think we raised over like 25,000 Hong Kong that night. So that combined with our funding drive will bolster us a bit in the months to come, and hopefully we will. I'm looking to cover more China stuff actually. So we'll see.
Well, I wanted to ask.
It's very lucrative, by the way.
Oh,
But it has more international impact actually, because I think interest comes and goes with Hong Kong at the moment. There's a lot of interest, but
That's true.
there's a lot of stories we miss every day. Like when we do have 4 reporters, but we barely get round to all the things I'd hope and wish for us to do, because not all of it gets into English, and that's where the deficiency is. There's been a lot of other news outlets similar to us in Chinese who've done even bigger crowdfunding efforts. We were the first, but yeah, it's kind of niche already in Hong Kong to be operating in English, but we want to tell, the first draft of history. We want to talk about what's happening in Hong Kong to people abroad, and a third of our audience is American.
Wow.
So yeah, we want to make sure it's in English, and there's a lot of blind spots in China. We haven't a China reporter at the moment. We're recruiting.
Well, if anyone watching wanted to contribute, how can they?
Oh, Chris, I'm glad you asked. Well, we accept most forms of payment, including PayPal, Visa, MasterCard, and even the cash machines that are around Hong Kong. You can do that. We have book referral links, merch, events. If you can think of it.
We need to learn from you
Yeah,
guys.
actually.
I try to just activate every possible income stream and hope that the pennies add up to the pounds. Because for 10 years I avoided journalism thinking, okay, that's broken. And it didn't get any better, but I thought, okay, let's do all of the things and hope it sort of works. And we are still most reliant on the annual funding drives, just like NPR and a lot of others. But generally we're doing what The Guardian kind of does with getting members on board, and we've seen a surge in that this week. But certainly click support, and it's pretty self-explanatory. You can donate and support press freedom in Hong Kong.
We'll put your link in the bottom.
You're a legend.
HKFP.com.
That's the one.
All right.
Yeah, don't mess it up. Thanks.
It's been a long week so far.
It's been a long week.
I forget sometimes, yeah. So
So do you
sleepless
think
week.
we can get out of Hong Kong soon, or do you think this is gonna keep going?
what, can you fly out safely?
No. I mean, is the
I wouldn't
want to
go
know if
over
there's
the
still
border.
more work we
You're
have.
going to end up in your own CCTV confessional special. I can see it.
Oh,
No. We're not going to Shenzhen. That's not what I'm asking.
Don't go that way. Go
No.
fly out. What's going to happen over the next few days?
Yeah.
Well, there's talk Friday night of maybe an escalation, maybe a bit of hargy-bargy, a few sharpened elbows, I don't know. But we're ready for that. But otherwise, the main organising pro-democracy coalition, the Civil Human Rights Front, have said, save your energy till July 1st, which is the annual pro-democracy march. So we'll see if we have a heightened turnout for that one this year. We'll be reporting on it.
So we should.
I wouldn't hang out for another 2 weeks.
Wait, should we be here till July 1st?
Could you pull that off? I don't know. But that will be the next big flashpoint I see. But we might see a little bit of
3 million people.
Unpredictable scenes tomorrow night. We'll see.
We better start our own fundraising drive so we can stay to July 1st. Visit patreon.com/China Uncensored.
Or if anybody wants to give us an Airbnb.
Yeah. Is there anything you're dying to say that you didn't?
I will remember as soon as the cameras stop and I leave. I'm
Okay.
sure. You know what it's like, but I can't remember.
The cameras have just been turned off and we're done.
No, it's not going to work until I'm sat at my desk hours later and I'm like,
All right. Okay, then.
Not tempted to goggle up, Chris, on the front lines?
Oh, I'm running to the tear gas if it
I think the
goes
suit and the beard, though, since you're permanently in that thing, is going to give you away.
up. It's grown into my skin.
Yeah, I understand below the suit you have another suit, so I've been told. Your birthday suit is just another suit.
It's just another suit.
Under that, do you just have a tattoo of a suit?
No, it's just my skin.
It suits all the way down.
It's all the way down.
You're a Russian doll of suit.
Yes.
So you're actually
I'm more
really
suit
weedy
now than man.
I see.
Yeah.
Got a lot of questions about how you maintain the beard as well, but maybe for another time.
Ooh. Why? You want to grow one?
But it all just connects up. It's just very impressive.
Oh, thank you. You see, Shelley doesn't like the beard.
No?
No. But I'm glad you do.
Thank you, Chris.
It's
getting weirdly flirtatious now.
I feel like
Let's wrap
what's going to
up.
happen is now it's going to be Tom and Chris.
I'm armed with an aloe vera, I'll have you know.
I'll shove money at you later.
Okay,
For
thanks.
donations.
We are staying in the Wan Chai area, so we've noticed.
Cheers.
Yeah.
I've already had an intimate frisking just getting this mic on, so on that homoerotic note, Chris, I'll let you sign off. Please sign off.
It was a pleasure having you.
Thank you very much for having
here.
me.
It was a pleasure for you to have us here.
I appreciate you bringing some humor to, can I say show?
No.
To the drama of the Sinosphere.
Thank you. Well, it's been a gas.
Quite.
And a tearjerker. That's not our strongest sign off, but it happens from time to time. So, thanks again.
Thanks, Chris.
And
I'm just here at this point.
Yeah. But check out Hong Kong Free Press. It's one of the best.
The freest of the presses.
Freest of the presses. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.